Hello, everyone. I hope that everybody's doing well. Sorry I've been away for a while again. I've had a lot going on, but let's see if we can go ahead and get these chapters banged out for you. Okay, chapter 5 is where we left off. So, going back to this is Harry and Meghan, the real story, written by Lady Colin Campbell. Disclaimer can be found in the description below. I didn't list pictures in this. This is going to be a pure audio version. So, Chapter 5. Despite the considerable advantage that Meghan's color was and the demonstrably apparent love between the couple, there were inconvenient fact that Meghan had a past that could damage the prestige of the royal family if the press did not remain on her side. The interventions have not been limited to royals' personal lives. Sometimes it has been by someone with whom a royal is involved professionally. This could also relate back to Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein. Meghan's color was an advantage that gave her and Harry flexibility they would never have had otherwise. There is little doubt that there would have been behind-the-scenes maneuvers to break up the relationship before it could lead to marriage, had she been white. There was also an unpopularity amongst the people she had crossed in the past, some of whom would inevitably come out of the woodwork if she married into the royal family, and brief journalists against her. But even worse than any of that were the hardcore porn tapes purported to be Meghan Markle performing, we'll just say, an act on a gentleman. And Lady Colin Campbell says, I have seen the tapes. Whoa. So we all know that nowadays it is possible to convincingly doctor tapes so that what looks like one individual is actually two, with the head of one superimposed on the body of another. Maybe the woman in the tapes is Meghan's doppelganger. Maybe the face is Meghan's superimposed onto someone else's body in a cynical money-making exercise. Either way, there is no doubt that someone who looks exactly like Meghan is being robustly penetrated by an immense, and I'll say member of a male anatomy, belonging to a stud of the first order, and that the Meghan character is groaning in a manner reminiscent of her performance in Suits. The supposed Meghan's body looks very much like what we can imagine her to be, except that the breasts are mercifully larger, than the ones Meghan presents to us nowadays. This, however, did not deter her detractors, because if one examines photographs taken of her early 20s while she was starting out in the industry, one can observe her breast and halter necklines being much fuller toward the armpits than they are nowadays. This suggests that she might as well have had her breast augmented, then had them reduced once she became more successful, as did Victoria Beckham. Because the timeline of the sex tapes dovetails with Meghan's precarious period, doubting Thomases took comfort from the coincidences which allowed them to remain convinced. Okay, the tapes. This was anything but a desirable scenario for any respectable institution, much less a royal family. In some ways, it didn't even matter whether the tapes were authentic or fabricated. Their very existence was a problem. The idea that any member of the British royal family could have had a past that permitted a sex tape, real or fake, to exist, that it was out there in the internet for all to see, and that it would always be a percentage of people who believed it to be genuine, if it was or not. The one thing that kept all critics of the marriage at bay were Harry's determination to marry Meghan no matter what. Nevertheless, there was great concern because Meghan herself is the sort of personality who people either love or loathe. One critic noted that her performance was uncomfortably like a genuine phony's. She had perfected the art of projecting a convincing display of sincerity. Many of her statements were all the evidence that we needed. Those blogs hoisted her own petard, Meghan's statements about how desirable self-love was, about how you could be anything that you wanted to be, about how it was okay to lie to yourself as long as you were doing it to achieve your ambitions. The family was worried. Her avowed humanitarianism, mixed up as it was with political activism, also caused pauses for thought. The British establishment is one of the most sophisticated in the world. Its more intelligent members are infinitely less gullible than most of the counterparts situated elsewhere. No one actually cared whether Meghan's humanitarianism was genuine or not, as long as she was prepared to do the job of a royal consort and when she was required to do so. But her avowed politicianization was a real worry. It could tank the crown if she and Harry married. The British monarchy, like all other constitutional monarchies in Europe, is resently apolitical. They desire the improvement of their citizenry lot. However, they also appreciate that it is necessary to retain elements of the past if a society is to remain stable. At the palace, where an atmosphere of agreeability has always been valued above any one person getting his or her own way, this made people pause for thought and question whether Hurricane Meg wouldn't be blowing down all sorts of edifices which everyone wanted to remain upstanding. What also perturbed observers was the control Meghan exerted over Harry. Admittingly, he was happy. Indeed, both he and Meghan seemed to be flying high as they sparked each other off to even greater heights. The relationship also seemed to be fairly layered, with Harry strutting around playing the alpha male, protecting the hyper-feminine flower against potentially adverse elements, while she stroked his back and clucked after him like a mother hen with her chick. So what if she did most of the talking? And even when he wanted to make a point, she would either talk over him or finish what he was saying. She was extremely feminine while he was extremely masculine on some level, playing out the yin and yang almost stereotypically. But let's see, then it goes on to say they questioned possibly unfairly whether she wasn't too dominant for everyone's good, her own and Harry's included. The surprising thing was the only person who couldn't see it was Harry. Someone who had now left the palace told me, quite missing the point, that if Harry was happy to follow in Meghan's wake, the dynamic suited him. Okay, excuse me, you might hear my little dog in the back. Yes, the hiccups. All right, Meghan's control. Putting the relative strengths on the couples aside, she and Harry were tripping. Someone close to him told me. He is a very emotional guy, and she knows just what buttons to press to get him going. While admirers felt she was very much in tune with Harry emotionally and managed him well, detractors felt that she'd slam the physical button, wrapping herself around him like a bindweed, stroking his back as if she were his nanny, and he is a vulnerable 6-year-old in need of reassurance. I, for one, felt that she was manipulating him emotionally, undermining him by playing on his vulnerabilities, doing so under the guise of caring. For him when in fact she really was gaining power over him. The way he used to look at her when she was on the other side of the room was painful to see. He was like a puppy looking adorningly at his masters. His eyes would swivel in his head as his gaze followed her around the room. But she's clever. I got the distinct impression that she'd reward him with pats when he was good, shades of nanny. She'd also snap at him if he stepped out of line. She did this at Princess Eugenie's wedding in full view of everyone, and I've seen her do it on many other occasions. But if he moved too much out of her orbit or was in danger of eluding her, she'd reestablish contact physically. This would have the effect of sucking him in again. There really was no escape from her. Not that he seemed to want to escape. Hungry for love, feeling love, and believing that it was reciprocated, he was placing his fate in her hands. To those who questioned her motives, this was frightening, not only in practical terms, but in emotional ones as well. But to those who did not, their relationship was something to celebrate. Had Harry and Meghan's worldly positions been more equal, but the fact that they were not raised a flag. When one had so much and the other so little in comparison, the question that Meghan might be using Harry was bound to arise. But Harry himself had no such reservations. He might have been blind to the dangers of the adage, marry in haste, repent at leisure, just how I was until I found a wedding ring on my finger and a milestone around my neck. But William was only too aware of the possibilities. He tried to introduce an element of caution into Harry's reckoning, even warning his brother how his mother had always preached the virtues of long-standing relationships rather than sudden passions. His response to William was aggressive, unappreciative, and resentful. He even accused him of being jealous and trying to deprive him of his right to happiness, which really was ridiculous, as William had always loved his brother and had always sought his happiness. It was relatively easy for Harry to burn his bridges with William because he was now one half of a couple who were both at one remove from everyone else. Harry was always going to be susceptible to a powerful, dominant woman because he was the mama's boy of just such a woman. For all her warmth and affection, Diana was obviously jealous, possessive, and dominating. She was also a very sweet and vulnerable, when in fact she was all those things as well as all those opposites. She could be charming, captivating, and fun, just like Meghan. There is nothing more appealing to a mama's boy than a woman who is like his mother. It is said that most men marry their mothers, and while I would dispute the accuracy of such a blanket statement, the truism is that men who love their mothers gravitate toward women who are like their mothers. They are the most devoted of spouses because there are few things more potent than a man reciprocating his mother in adulthood. And we now know that Meghan Markle was a lot like his mother, or she pretended to be. Diana was very contradictory personality. For every virtue, there was a corresponding vice. She would be warm and kind and natural and affectionate. Then she wanted to have that in return. And if not, she could be cruel, cold, and vengeful. She was extremely manipulative and definitely did not hold by the maxim that charity starts at home. She frequently cut off friends and family for little or no reason. Then, if it suited her, picked them back up again as if they were a toy. As a child, she had been badly damaged emotionally by her parents' divorce. Meghan never forgives nor forgets a slight, real or imagined, which was classic Diana, and like the mother-in-law she never knew, when she decided to charm and would charm, but when they decided to discard, she would also drop someone as if they were a leper in biblical times. In a variety of ways, the mature post-Trevor, Meghan had made her men aware that they'd better give her what she wants if they want to keep her. Meghan also possessed a cold fury when she did not get her way that made it impossible for others to disagree with her and maintain a pleasant relationship in which adults agree to disagree, while also maintaining a healthy degree of personal anonymity. Those who did not please her were in danger of losing her, which could create a terror of losing her in people, not only men, but parents and friends as well, with whom she was involved. Although Diana could equally instill the terror of loss in those with whom she was involved, hers was anything but a cool technique. This meant Diana's relationship seldom ended without a bang, while Meghan, who was far more self-possessed, had perfected the art of terminating her so silently that there wasn't even a whimper when she dropped the axe. Meghan had been able to obtain a hold over Harry that has made her power invincible. Whether that is a fair assessment, only time will tell, but what is undoubtedly certain is that Meghan is the dominant partner in the union, and she tolerates no threats from any quarter. A case in point was Harry's reaction to William's suggestion that he should take things at a more measured pace. His reaction had been so adverse that the brothers fell out in a wholly unnecessary way. Catherine was caught up in the crossfire. Meghan could now appeal to Harry's protective instincts as she capitalized upon the family's reservations about the speed which the relationship was hurling toward permanence, detaching him further from his old support network. Rather than loosen Harry's connection to Meghan, William's intervention had tightened it. In doing so, Meghan's influence over Harry had increased. This now caused concern not only within the family, but among the courtiers, all of whom only wanted a marriage if it would work, but were nervous of one that might not. Then Harry brought things to a head by asking to see his grandparents and told them he wished to marry Meghan. Ooh. Any family confronted with the possibility of a union which had the hallmarks of becoming problematic would try to delay the ultimate commitment in the hope that time might bring insight and it would collapse under the weight of its unsuitability if that turned out to be the case. Both the Queen and Prince Philip had a good relationship with Harry. Philip is known within the royal circles for being an accommodating pragmatist who will always try to find a way that reconciles royal duty with personal urges. In his eyes, there would be no better outcome than Harry and Meghan pursuing the relationship without matrimony until all doubts were then cleared up. And if that were not, Harry could still remain with Meghan, but without the ultimate commitment. A man could sleep with whomever he pleased, but marriage was another matter entirely. Issues such as duty to the nation and the family, as well as suitability, must be factored into any marital equation, and if you could not guarantee a positive outcome, you must resist the urge to marry. But when a man gets the bit between his teeth and wants to marry a woman, caution does not always prevail. It has been widely, and I gather accurately, reported that when Harry brought up the subject of marriage to his grandparents, Prince Philip, already up to speed about Meghan Markle, would find it impossible to fit into the role of royal duchess without a personality transplant. Pointed out to him by that, we step out with actresses, we don't marry them. This was not snobbishness on his part. The qualities that make an actor successful are the absolute opposite of those which make a good royal duchess, and there was no doubt in his mind that it would be unfair to both. Meghan and the monarchy to expect her to fulfill a lifetime of royal duties with a fully developed personality at odds with the requirements of the royal role. In fairness to Harry, Meghan also wanted to marry him. She had also closed her eyes and ears to all warnings, such as given by Gina Nelthorpe Crown, about why she would find it impossible to make the adjustment from television actress to a royal duchess. No one had actually envisioned a scenario in which she could marry Harry, and rather than adjust to her new situation, she would convince him to create a new one that suited her better by abdicating their royal roles. A material fact in agreeing to the marriage was Harry's place in the line of succession. Harry, the Queen, Prince Philip were aware that he would shortly be slipping down to sixth place once the Duchess of Cambridge's third child, which was due in April of 2018, was born. Now, remember, Catherine was pregnant during this time leading up to the wedding. This position was crucial, for following the repeal of the Royal Marriages Act of 1772, which was replaced with the 2013 Succession to the Crown Act, Harry was peripheral in the true meaning of the word. The likelihood of his succeeding to the throne was now so remote that withholding permission for any marriage, even one that might be problematic, would seem like an act of spite, or worse, prejudice. The Queen likes consensus and is always extremely well briefed as to what is going on in the world, as well as within her own family. So when Philip raised the temperament, Elizabeth II intervened with the intention of lowering it. Harry did not let her finish. what she was saying. He cut her off mid-sentence with the in precaution that he was going to marry her, and if you don't like it, you'll just have to suck it up. Can you imagine speaking to Her Majesty that way? Okay, back to the book. The Queen has never heard the expression before, nor indeed had I until the conversation was recounted to me, but I fully identified with her comment that I didn't need any explanation as to what it meant. As soon as I heard it, I knew. This, however, was not the end of the matter. The prince who recounted the conversation to me said that Harry then issued the coup de grace by telling his grandparents that they would be accused of racism unless they agreed to the marriage. Of course, Harry knew only too well that Meghan's race was not a negative to the family, but a positive. But the public would not know that, so this was his ace in the hole. Faced with the Queen's grandmother, Queen Mary called a fine kettle of fish. Elizabeth II and Prince Philip had no option but to give way to their determined grandson. We all only hope to God it doesn't turn out to be the catastrophe everyone fears it will be, the prince said. The family's great fear was that aside from Meghan's unsuitability for the royal role, she loved what she could achieve as a result of being Harry's wife, and that, rather than love of him, was her motivation. Although they hoped that their doubts were unfounded, her track record made them unsure, which was unfortunate, but they had been sure that Catherine loved William and Sophie Wessex loved Prince Edward. They hoped that with time their fears would be dissipated. As the prince told me, had Meghan not been a woman of color, they would never have allowed the marriage. It was the only thing that was unreservedly in her favor. It reinforced the diversity of Britain's society and was viewed as an updated version of Queen Elizabeth's statement when the Germans bombed Buckingham Palace during the war. I'm glad now I feel I can look the East End in the face. Meghan had set out to charm Prince Charles and the Queen to an extent. She had succeeded. Everyone hoped that such misgivings as had arisen would be laid to rest when she became a member of the royal family. To show how welcome Meghan was, the Queen even included her in the Sandringham Christmas house party in 2019. Although everyone did their utmost to make her feel welcome, although she responded with the charm and grace which she possesses when she wishes to respond positively, there was nevertheless an undercurrent emanating from that some people picked up as disdain or disapproval. One of the British royals told a European counterpart that she made it clear that she disapproved of hunting and shooting, and would therefore not be hanging around to participate in the traditional royal boxing shoot. And we all know that, allegedly, that she asked Harry to sell all of his guns, and he had some prized ones, and that he would no longer be shooting. What gets me is the underlying disrespect she seems to have for anyone who doesn't agree with her. Lady Colin Campbell says, I hope I'm wrong, but I can't shake the feeling that young Harry picked up right after Little Madam. I only hoped Havoc isn't her middle name. Havoc comes in many forms and is precipitated by many things, and in the run-up to the wedding, the white side of Meghan's family proved to be a rich hunting ground for the British tabloids. The black side of the family was deemed to be off limits, not through any humanitarian sentiments, but because the British public would have attacked the press for being racist. Okay, bear with me. Harry had always had such sympathy for his mother's plight, despite the fact that she usually tipped off her supposed pursuers, meaning she called the paps and let them know where she was going, and had also expressed concern when Doria was subjected to undue attention, but Tom Sr. was given neither support nor any consideration beyond the repetition of empty platitudes. The week before the wedding was an unfortunate attempt to divert the narrative into something more presentable was exposed in the Mail on Sunday. Stripping him of whatever remained of his self-respect, the paper revealed that he had cooperated with paparazzo, staging photographs for a vast sum of money, which was not accurate. The tabloid being the tabloids, exaggeration was the order of the day. Tom's humiliation was so complete that he had not only had a heart attack, but also offered to withdraw from the wedding. To her credit, Meghan and Harry declined his offer and insisted he fly over and give her away. However, they lost patience with him when he and his second heart attack shortly after being released from the hospital in Mexico following his first. Meghan stopped speaking to him while Harry berated him by text. Tom told them that he suspected they were really sorry that he hadn't died, so that he could pretend to be sad and not have to bother with him anymore. The response was a complete lack of response to him and to each of the messages and phone calls from him. The palace's worst nightmare, at least until Meghan and Harry bolted, had now begun in earnest. That's the end of chapter 5. I'm going to try to get chapter 6 up. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Again, I've missed you all. Hope you're all doing well, and we'll talk to you very soon. Thank you.